I know it sucks, man. You don't really want to go to the store. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do this. But like take one night out of the week and just make a roast beef and then just make a big one and then use it for lunch meat, use it for sandwiches, use it for tacos, use it for whatever else you want through the week, or just snack on it. And like, then you're not spending all this money. You're not getting all the nitrates, all this extra stuff that's in it. You get to season it how you want. And it, again, I get so passionate about it because it's like, dude, this is not that hard. Every human, come on, guys. Like, it's not that hard. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it. I am excited to get to talk to you again, man.
Dude, you're fucking awesome. You have a great energy and you are on a mission. You are teaching people stuff that, like, look, the reality is a lot of people don't have time to cook. A lot of people don't have time to deal with going to grocery stores. And then like we do, and the majority of the stuff in a grocery store is already basically pre-cooked. You just like add water and reheat and do stuff like that. And I think what you're doing is showing that everybody can have access to this delicious food.
That's exactly it, man. At the end of the day, you know, this all kind of started kind of strange. You know, we can kind of get back into it. You know, I'm 40 years old. So 38 years old, just kind of filming some stuff for a butcher shop to get it on their Facebook. Well, in the middle of all this, I started making some videos and just kind of put my personality into it. And it kind of went, you know, in a direction. I'm like, oh my God, what is this? But instead of like taking like a direction of like this is really cool, people love me, I was like, man, people are really learning and this is really cool. Like, I didn't think that, honestly, someone really wanted to know how to cut up a pork loin, man. Like, I just figured like probably somebody else that's a carpenter. Like someone probably doesn't want to hear about putting some drywall in, you know, it's like, but after kind of seeing it and I'm like, wow, man, like everybody eats food, right? And so everyone has to get it somehow. And wait, and so I kind of like went backwards and I'm like, I've been this meat cutter butcher for 20 years and I've been taking people's money, right? And like learning how to merchandise this thing to get more. So I'm like, let me flip this thing back around because at this point, let me help everybody else. And so
you're reverse engineering the whole game.
Yeah, I had no idea that like I've been preparing myself for the last 20 years, dude, to like, all right, wait, I don't like the way all this is going, you know? I don't like the way this food's being thrown away. I don't like how this is doing this in these big places. And so for me, it's like, man, I have some sort of a platform now where I get respected for the stuff that I've done because of like meat cutting and stuff. And so I just want to give that knowledge back in any way, shape, or form, because otherwise what's it good for if I'm just holding on to it, you know?
Yeah, well, dude, I mean, and there's so much more than that too, because like there are certain things that, and I like to cook. I've liked to cook for a long time, and I like to go search things out and find stuff, and I go down rabbit holes, and I get very like narrow-minded on things, and like I can get like OCD on a specific recipe until it's perfect. That said, there have definitely been things that I would say is a gimme that I will never make, because that is just a supermarket or a mass-produced food that is beyond my reach or my ability, or I would have to buy so much machinery. And here you go, showing us how to do lunch meat at home, stuff like that. Like I couldn't.
I know it's the simple things. Again, it's the simple things to me that I would just say, oh, this is how you do it. Like, for instance, like just not even this instrument, right? Let's just talk about a piece of beef.
Yeah.
So we talk about it. I talk about it on my page all the time. Like roast beef at a deli is, 15 to 20 upward. Depends on where you go, man. It could be $30 a pound.
Yeah, it's insane.
All it is essentially round. So most of the time it's top round, right? And so you get a big old chunk of top round and it costs them, I don't know, $4 a pound, I would say, right? And then the butcher can trim it up, take all that trim, right? And then use that for hamburger. Then they make the $6 or $7 a pound over here, right? So they're still making a little bit on that trim. And then after that, they have this beautiful piece of meat that's right from the center. Put some salt, pepper, garlic on top, put it in the oven, and then cook it until it's the perfect temperature, 115, 120 for roast beef. And then they put it in the refrigerator. And then there's 30 of them sitting there and they're wrapped in saran wrap. And then you go there and then you spend $22 a pound. They just spent five, four, and you can do the same thing because they just use the oven. And so I'm just trying to rip that into people's brains. Like, I know it sucks, man. You don't really want to go to the store. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do this. But like, take one night out of the week and just make a roast beef and then just make a big one and then use it for lunch meat, use it for sandwiches, use it for tacos, use it for whatever else you want through the week, or just snack on it. And like, then you're not spending all this money. You're not getting all the nitrates, all this extra stuff that's in it. You get to season it how you want. And it, again, I get so passionate about it because it's like, dude, this is not that hard. Every human, come on, guys, like, it's not that hard. We can do it. And so if we reverse some of that, and then we'll take some of this crap out of what we're eating again, and then we start to be a little bit more self-sustainable. And then wait a minute, you start going backwards a little bit. You're like, why am I buying these steaks? Why do I not just buy this big piece? Because I can use it for steaks, and then I can use the fat for tallow to cook with, and then I can use the trimmings for grind for a ribeye burger. Come on, man. Now you're doing all this stuff yourself. And so you're saving money, you're eating good. And then so for me, I'm like, this is just a no-brainer, bro. Like, we got to teach everybody. Let's do this,
Yeah. I also think that, like, I think everybody's got their own path, but like for me, one of the things that has been super successful for me, and I don't espouse any diet. I'm not saying like anybody should do X, Y, or Z as far as diets go, but something that's been very helpful for me is limiting processed food to as much as possible. If I can get everything that I eat to be one ingredient foods, I'm just better off. Now, that doesn't mean I don't add salt and pepper or spices, but when you buy a piece of meat that's just beef versus buying something that's got 30 or 40 ingredients, I find that I do better with limited ingredients. And that's another thing that you're showing, like lunch meat is one of those things where it's hard to get like lunch meat that is, it's delicious, but at the same time, it's loaded with other stuff. It's got sugar, it's got fat, it's got ancillary stuff like that in it. And you're making sliced chicken lunch meat, because that is different than slicing a chicken breast. And sometimes I want a sliced chicken breast, and sometimes I want sliced deli meat. And I now know how to make that because of you. And it doesn't have nitrates. It doesn't have sugar. It doesn't have any of that stuff.
It's those little things to me that just bring it all back of like, wait, anything that you see in the store, like, you can do at home. There's exceptions, man. Come on. Like, for real, some of us aren't going to make a fucking salami. Okay.
Right.
Some of us are not going to go to that level and go through this charcuterie class and do this and this. So personally, I've never made, I've made it with friends. I've made like some sort of versions of salami, but I've never sat here and done the whole process. I don't have all the stuff. But that's something that maybe it'd be fun to do. But no, man, I eat salami. I'm going to buy salami. I know it's processed. I like it. And like, this is one thing that I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll deal with it. But for the most part, I'll try and get the big pieces where I can slice it because it's cheaper. But if I can't, man, it's like anything else, man. I got to buy a bag. And it's like, I'm not going to like be mad at myself,
Right.
But if you can think ahead and try to plan ahead a little, I guess that's what I'm just trying to show you. So for instance, like, my story, it's like I've never been like a skinny guy or whatever you want to say. But so like my story is I've always been a big boned guy and had to kind of like always take care of myself more than my friends, like, man, how come he can eat that and I do this? We do the same thing, but I'm slow and I'm fat, But for whatever reason, my body reacted like this and their bodies reacted like, and so I didn't know. But with that being said, continuing to eat, like, there's been points in my life where I'm like, I ate really healthy and I felt really good. And then processed foods kind of came back, and then you just don't really realize what it's doing to you. And then like 5 years later, I'm like, holy shit, man. I'm like the biggest I've been in my whole life, man. So it's like, hang on. And so the beginning of this year, I decided to try the carnivore diet. Did it for 30 days, pretty strict. Like, I really went into this like, so I've tried to explain to people, and this is a great opportunity to be able to explain it in a better way. So the way that I went into this, I had a leg up, I would say, because when I announced it to all my followers, I had to put my feet to the fire to myself. I'm like, man, I am not going to fail myself in front of a bunch of people. But how do I hold myself accountable, right? And so the way I looked at this, man, was silly as hell, but it really helped me. All right. We've all seen the shows, or we've seen them like Naked and Afraid, or I don't know, like you're on this stranded island, right? You gotta fish for your food. You gotta find some sort of bugs to eat or grass. So to me, I'm like, I'm always, when I see one of those, I'm like, dude, I could do it. Like I could do it, man. This guy only lasted 3 days. He was a Navy SEAL and this and that. I'm like, come on. I don't know if I could do it. But what I do know is I could be strict on myself, right? And so these guys are eating bugs and leaves or whatever the show is showing them, right? And like all the stuff. So in my mind, 30 days, I get to eat steak, have some cheese, a little butter, some coffee, and all these kind of things. But now I don't get ice cream, chips, tortillas, sandwiches, burritos, all the like, oh man, like this is what so it's like, now I put myself to this, like, I have to only eat this and I have to eat this to survive, right?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm like 3 days in, I'm like, this is not so bad. Like I'm eating like these guys would have ate like this. I mean, it was a mindset thing. So I continued to eat that way. For 30 days, man, I lost like 30 pounds. Felt really, really good. But my heart and my soul, man, missed vegetables and fruit. And so I wanted to like research what it did and how it affected me. So I slowly added stuff back. And tomatoes, I realized, are a nightshade. I mean, I knew that I realized that I am not good with nightshades. And so I realized that I had getting like rashes up here, but they weren't anything wild, right? And so I never really thought about it. But I'm like, wow, I think it's the tomatoes and the peppers and this. So I ate some salsa and I'm like, same thing. And I'm like, there it is. So it's not like I don't feel awful, but my body doesn't like it. And so I did realize that doing all this, which was really cool. But then beyond that, man, I put a strawberry in my mouth after 30 days of not having anything sweet. Never had such a beautiful strawberry moment in my life. And so
magical.
After that, it was just one after the next of like, ooh, watermelon or whatever it might be. And so again, I always say to myself, like, you can have you can have a tortilla with a taco or this, but what I literally say to myself, man, this isn't pitching your show. I'm like, dude, don't be a glutton. I say, don't be a glutton. So, because I can make 5 tacos, right?
Sure.
Or I can make 2 tacos with a ton of meat and a ton of this instead of like dragging this whole thing on. And so I just had to make some mental changes, dude. I'm down 75 pounds in like 8 months.
That's
and
incredible.
So, yeah, man, that's where the energy's coming from too, man. It's just like, everything changes,
Let me ask you this, Anthony, because I think about this kind of thing a lot. Like, when I try to put myself back in the headspace of like at my wit's end with my weight and my general malaise, moving through life, unhappy, sluggish, it's one thing to like when it's just your experience, you almost don't know what you're doing to yourself with food. Like you do, I find I needed a period of time that was really strict to even then. The first thing I had out at a restaurant after I'd been really, really strict on a diet for a while was a salad, but it was like a Chinese chicken salad, and it had a very
How guilty
sweet.
were you?
Well, it wasn't even that. Like my eyes went blurry, like I almost couldn't see, and I was like, "What's happening to me?" And then just the way foods affect me now. Like if I eat ice cream, even if I eat diet ice cream before I go to bed, I wake up and feel like garbage. But if I'm at the gym working out, I can drink a Gatorade. If I drink that Gatorade before I go to bed, I'll wake up and feel like garbage. Like I just think I felt like garbage so much back then that I couldn't tell that food was having any effect on me. Do you know what I mean? Like that was just, no, this is what I eat. I feel like this is just how I feel. This is what life is. And I
Yep.
didn't recognize that. Oh, I could feel better, you know?
No, I agree 100%. And I honestly had never given myself that chance in my life. Right. And so, not realistically, like over the last, in October, it'll be 2 years since I had a drink. And I was drinking like, you know, I don't know, 2, 3, 6 packs a week, let's just say, just throughout, whatever through this or binge drinking on the weekend and, all the stuff. Right. And so I've done this my whole life, man. Like since I was 16, we had a fake ID and this is all I've done. And so obviously this didn't help with anything, but along with it comes all the shit food and all this. And so my wife and I, well, she initially just made this decision of her, like, she just said to like, hey, what do you think? Like, let's try not to drink for the next 5 years. And I'm like, what? And she's like, well, let's just see, like, as
5 years,
parents and
by
as
the way,
people.
5 years is a big, like I've heard, like, let's go a month, 5 years. She just pulled 5 years out of her hat. That's awesome.
She just pulled 5 years out. And I'm just like, oh, like, a little bit like, okay, well, and then she started explaining, like, we've always drank somehow or some way. Like, let's just say you go on a vacation, right? The first thing I want to do is figure out, like, let's get something to drink. Let's bring it to the hotel or wherever we're going. So then we don't have to leave. We can start our vacation, right? And so these are the type of things that were just, such a habit. And so we just, yeah. So she's like, what do you think? And then she's like, I'm going to do it. So she did it. And about a week and a half later, I jumped on. It took me, because I'm not the type I don't want to be forced into something either, because that means I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But it gave me a little bit of time to be like, all right, you know what? I want to do this. And so I've done it. Haven't had a drink. A little water here, a little, haven't had a drink, but I would never be the person. I was the guy. I was the mayor of my town. I was, like, you come around and Tony, like it's it's going to be a good time. And so like I've never had an opportunity to not be that person. And then again, going through this past year and a half mentally and all this, I've had to figure out a lot of stuff and like who I really am and who is this and who's this person now that has 1 million followers over here and a couple, but now I got 5 million people that watch me. Who is this person, right? And then now I get to finally dig deep and be like, I'm not drinking, I get to kind of be myself. I get to do this. I mean, I'm a big advocate. I'm a big marijuana smoker, man. So that kind of keeps me level, man. I'm in California. It's all legal, but it keeps me kind of just like level with life in general. So I try not to take everything like so seriously, but at the same time, I get to be attentive to like my family and my friends and all this. And so it's like, it's been a different mindset, man. And it's like, if I could go back in time and I could make one legal and one illegal, I tell you, I'd switch the two. That's all I'm saying, man. It's just, there's nothing wrong with either of them. Don't get me wrong, man. Like, after 5 years or when I retire or something, man, I probably want to have a couple of cocktails, like I want a beer. Like, this is not like, but for right now, like, boom, this thing is working. So I want to just like, all right, let's keep it down this direction,
Yeah.
It's a trip.
That's amazing. So you have had a radical change over these years.
Definitely. Like I said, mentally too. I was doing some wild, like, time with my work, getting up at 3 a.m. and then getting off at like 2 p.m. And then my wife's a scientist, so we would flip flop schedules. And so when I got off, I would meet her and then I would grab the kids and I'd be up until maybe 10 p.m. because they just weren't going to sleep. And then I was just burnt, man, like burnt. And so we had years of just like, oh, this is so hard. And long story short, she finished and she got her PhD. She's now She's a doctor. She's a scientist of immunology. I'm super proud of
Wow.
her.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So we've done a lot to get where we are. And so we basically got to a point where I'm like, man, maybe for this next year or so, I can try to take care of the house and the kids while you work, and we can kind of get things squared back away. And then I can jump back in to the regular scene. But that helped our mental health like immensely. Being able to empty the dishwasher and know you're the only one that's going to do it, and like we all know that you're responsible instead of everybody collectively, you work, you have to do that, you have to do that. Now it's like, hey, no, I got the dishwasher. And then if she empties it, I'm like, did you empty the dishwasher? Oh, then I'm like, thank you. So it kind of flipped the whole thing of like resentment. You can resent one another when you're in this place with two small children, man,
Yeah.
And so this kind of flipped it around where we were able to communicate better and not like, I'm like, no, I'll do this. And then if she did jump in, and I'm like, man, then I thank her. So it's just, we're all doing the same shit, man. But I flipped my mindset, and so did she. And it made a thing like so much easier, man. Cause it's like, at the end of the day, I can go on, but we're all responsible for ourselves, right? But also, if you have children, they're also responsible for your children, right? And
Yeah.
so for me, I'm responsible for my children no matter what, no 100%. So I don't put that responsibility on my wife, right? And so I will take whatever responsibility, but I will still like confide in her. And then I want her to also do the same. So we both take full responsibility for our children, but we don't rely on one another to, this one does this or this one does that. It's more of a collective parenting, which has worked a lot better,
Let me ask you a question. How old are your kids now?
I got a 5-year-old Josie, and then Henry is 3, and then I got one in the oven.
One cooking.
A little
Okay.
boy.
Did you find dieting? Because I've had two experiences. Like, number one, I find my kids to be a massive source of strength because to your point, once I had to be responsible for somebody other than myself. And again, I completely am with you. It's not even, and I go back and forth. Is it biological? Is it spiritual? What is this insane connection I have to my kids that's unlike anything I've ever known before? But it is just like, it's as though God took something and put it inside me, and it was like, oh, I am responsible for you, and this feeling gives me power. It really does. At the same time, raising little kids, my kids are all grown, but you're in 3 and 5 and one on the way. I can remember, though that feeling never left, though that feeling of power never left, you get tired chasing kids around, and dieting can be very difficult with little kids because you're not going to, I assume none of your kids went carnivore. And so you're
No.
preparing them, whatever it is kids eat carbs, kids eat stuff that isn't, it's not always diet friendly. My kids loved fish fingers and Annie's mac and cheese, which now I'm told is worse than Kraft mac and cheese. I don't know that that's true, but you know what I mean? Like, at the time we were like, we're health food people. We're eating Annie's mac and cheese. And like, I remember dieting being really hard when they were little kids.
I think for me, I guess I have a pretty addictive personality, right? And so for me, when I go in, I'm in, or when I'm out.
Yeah.
Right. So in, what is it? I got it here. 2011, I stopped smoking cigarettes. Before that, I tried to stop and have one when I went out to go party or go have one. We're on a cruise. I'll get a pack. Never, ever am I the guy that can just have one and then not continue this thing. And so,
Yeah.
when I decided I'm going to stop smoking cigarettes, I haven't touched a cigarette. Don't get me wrong. I picked up a few cigars and some other things along the way, but
Right.
hey, I haven't touched a cigarette. But so I kind of have that. I have that in my head too. So with alcohol, it's the same thing. If I have one drink, I don't want the the non-alcoholic personally. Like my wife has had these non-alcoholic ones, or we go somewhere and do this. And I personally, I don't want it. I don't want to have anything to do with it just for my mindset. Cause I don't need to just be going through these motions because that is the habit, not this. And so then this turns into like, dude, I'm just going to get some beer. Like that's what in my head, that's what that would be. And so I try to go on this, like, I can't drink at all. Like, I'm not drinking at all. That's it. I'm not drinking. And then I lock it out of my life. And the same that went with that first 30 days of carnivore. It was like, man, like, yeah, my kids, man, everybody, this thing, just like you're talking about, they're having a chicken nugget, we're doing this, or they have a mac and cheese I just made. And then it's like, the habit that I had to stop the most, man, is this. I'm stirring it and go to, I'm like, because you just take a taste. You got to taste. And now I'm like, I want to go so far into this where I'm like, I'm not eating any of these things. If I break this, then for me, then I've broken this thing. And so for me, I got to stick to it. And that's, again, like, it could be a lot of things. And that's the same goes with like being in a relationship and being with my wife. It's like that thing of like cheating. Dude, if I cheat, I've told her, man, I could never do that to her, because then I would be a cheater. Then in my mind, I'm a cheater. That's okay. You just cheat, go cheat, you know? And so it's like, for me, I kind of stick to my core, and I stay in my lane in that direction of like, because otherwise the influence that could be around you is so enormous that you'll never be able to really be yourself, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a weird thing I'm learning along the way, man. But it's definitely it's eye opening, you know?
Yeah, no, totally. Did you find the reintroduction to vegetables, was that difficult at all? Because I've talked to some people who do carnivore, and then when they and even I've had this experience a little bit when I go like, oh, I want to increase my fiber intake. You know, I read some study and it's like, oh, I need to get 35 grams of fiber per day, which is proven for me much harder even than getting my protein. But I notice like I'll get bloated. I won't feel great when I eat a ton of vegetables, and then it balances out. And now I could eat a bucket of sauerkraut and it's no problem. But I've talked to some people who've reintroduced some veggies from carnivore, and there's discomfort. Did you have any of that?
I'd say a little bit, like, but nothing. I would say nothing that was because I slowly would introduce it back, right? But I think more of the effects that my body had problems with was, like, as we were talking about before, the processed stuff.
Yeah.
Any of that stuff in the, like, obviously some vegetables, man. I haven't. Dude, if you're not eating vegetables and then you start ripping through some vegetables, let me tell you, your wife is not going to want to be in the room with you, dude, because it's like your body is not used to. But it's a little gassy maybe, but nothing wild. But like, for instance, after carnivore, I'll have a little some vegetables and some meat, and then I would work into some mashed potatoes, right? And so it's it's starchy, but then it's not so bad, and I'd be all right. But then it's like, I went and, like, I had a couple tacos, like straight up corn tortillas, and just kind of like let it roll, whatever was on there. And I could almost feel, I felt a little bit like more bloated or whatever you would say in the morning, but nothing, I would say, like, detrimental, just kind of like, But then, man, like, we had pizza one night, like I had a slice of pizza with it. Nothing. And again, not like a whole pizza like I would have had in the past. It was like, I'll have a slice with the kids. I haven't had it in a while. Like, I'm going to do this. And so have a slice. Dude, I felt like I was completely hungover the next day, like completely hungover. And I'm like, dude, what is going on? No. And I'm like, oh, is that because of some pizza? And it could be gluten. It could be a million different things. But since I've been eating the other way, I haven't had these problems with, like, my stomach and, all that, and go to the bathroom regularly, man. Like, I'm like, this is ridiculous. I think, bathroom is super smooth. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it's like, oh, is it not going to be good? Is it going to do? And then, after 4 or 5 days of some off and on weird bowel movements, it's all normal, man. It's all comes back.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid. And the
Don't be afraid.
reintroduction of vegetables. Yeah, I'm actually talking to somebody now who a friend of mine who's like feels like they're done doing carnivore and just is like going to go back onto like eating how they were. And I'm like, why don't you just slowly reintroduce this stuff, because I think, and who knows, people are going to do what they're going to do. But also, like, I love your story too, because you found a path that works for you.
It helps. And it helps like just the silliest thing, man. Like I was telling people that I would miss lettuce, right? And it's like, what? Out of everything, you miss lettuce. But if you think about it, it doesn't have a lot of taste, right? But what it has is this fresh crispiness that's like watery, that refreshes your mouth, that goes along with other things like a carne asada or something. And so now having this lettuce introduced back into my diet really made it easy for me because I could now have taco salads all the time,
Yeah.
right? But carnivore taco salads with lettuce. And so I'm eating a ton of meat and then there's some cheese on there, maybe some sour cream. I mean, come on, you can't go wrong. And then I introduced an avocado. I'm like, I'm living the dream over here, dude. Like a hot sauce. Like now, because I'm like, I know that this tomato does this and it's not sugar, but we can, after all this stuff, man, at the end of the day, this sugar is the stuff that I feel like gets us the most,
Yeah.
I'd be the first one to say, like, I would talk about all this stuff and this and that, but the sugar is the one I think that just makes me feel like shit, makes me feel addicted, like you have a bite of sugar in something and then you're just like, you're ready. You want more.
You got that
Uh-huh.
sugar. I got that
I never
sugar.
realized it, because you're always putting it in your mouth and you're just eating it with anything you eat because that's American eating, right? And
Yeah.
so when you don't eat sugar and then it gets in you, I've even noticed my kids, they're like, I'm like, oh, that's sugar, man.
Oh yeah, man. You want to have a bad night with your kids, just feed them a bunch of candy or something like that. Take them to the ice cream shop. The night always sucks after that.
It is true, man. I never learned my lesson though. I
Right.
never learned.
Right. And neither do they. I mean,
No,
they feel like crap too. And then I have one of my kids is lactose intolerant. And man,
me too.
you can't get her away from ice cream. And she feels awful every time she eats it. And I'm like, why do you do that to yourself? But,
I get
asking
it.
her that, I totally get it. I get it too. I did that kind of thing to myself for 30, 40 years.
Yep, I get it. My daughter's also lactose intolerant. So we kind of had to deal with that. And it's the same sort of thing. And she'll go to an ice cream place. And yes, you can get the ones that don't have dairy, but how fun is that, dude? So she wants to
Well,
get that.
I will say I went to a vegan place once and I didn't even know it was a vegan place. And I had something made with this is definitely not a diet food, by the way. I mean, it's very high calorie stuff, but it was made with cashews, I think. And it was pretty damn good. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, if you've got a nut allergy, it's probably not good for you, but
Dude, there's some good stuff, man. Like it's hard because you every food gets like categorized just like anything, right? And so saying I made what was it? I made a beef stroganoff with a cashew sauce,
mhm.
like made sauce out of the cashew. Like to a lot of people I know that would just sound disgusting,
No, dude, cashews are a
But
great base for a sauce.
they are. I realized this when I was doing like carnivore or I was doing keto. We were like, man, this is all kind of bland. We looked up some cashew cream sauce, and I'm
Yeah.
like, no way, this is gonna taste good. I was I was thrown, man. I was like, this is like cashews, and then you put them in water overnight,
Yeah.
and then you just let them sit there until they get soft, and then you mix them, and you add like, and you're like, how the hell does that taste
No, yeah.
like cream?
Alon Hall, who is an incredible chef. He won Top Chef one year, many years ago,
Okay,
in Jesus, the early 2000s, like 2006 or 7. He came over to my house and cooked dinner for me and my wife and friends. And he made a sauce out of cashews and Perrier. And I was
okay,
like, this is,
yeah. You're like, what's gonna
I was
happen
like,
here?
you got real weird with this sauce. And it was incredible. A little bit of salt, maybe a little bit of garlic. It's a great sauce.
I mean, again, I am. I always was the person. I mean, come on, man. I've been behind a meat counter for 20 years. I have to be, you got to live that life, man. You're a man's man, meat, no vegan, this, but I really don't care what you do. Like, I really don't. There's guys back there that really would be like, there was that Beyond Meat, right? And they wanted it in the meat department next to the meat, and people got all bent out of shape, right? Why would you put this next to this? And personally, I mean, hey, you know what? If that's what you want, man, that's what you want. Just put it there. But I don't take offense to the way somebody's eating, And so
I would think the vegans would be offended by that. The vegans would
they
be
actually
like,
were.
I don't want my meat. I want my fake meat nowhere near your real meat.
Yes, that actually we had to move that. That was the first move. That was at Whole Foods, man. They had to end up moving it out of there. We had the people come in. They had the stickers they put of like the pig's face all over it, and yeah, I got out of that department real fast. But again, though, if you want to choose to eat something because it makes you feel good, it's that's not on me, And so please.
Yeah.
But that's, I guess what I was saying is I had some tofu, and I'm supposed to not like tofu, man. I mean, that's how I feel. Growing up, I never had it. Somebody made some fried tofu, man, with some like sweet and sour sauce. I'm like, ooh, man, I might put away chicken nuggets because it was really good, man. I would never want to admit that, but
tofu can be great. And by the way, like you go to China, tofu's in a lot of dishes with meat. It's not an either or, like it's very much an either or thing here.
Yeah.
Like tofu's for people who don't eat meat. And that's not the case where tofu basically originated. Like tofu, they just think it's delicious, and it is. It can be delicious.
You prepare it the correct way, and it's phenomenal, man. Sukiyaki. Have you ever had a sukiyaki dish?
Yeah.
I don't even want to explain it, but it's absolutely amazing. I know it's like a soy-based thing with super thin sliced ribeye, right?
Yeah.
But it's really sweet with rice, and
it's incredible. And it's usually got some tofu in it.
Yes, that's where, again, I'm like, I can eat tofu.
Yeah.
There's ribeye.
if there's a little ribeye in my tofu, it's all good.
There's a little ribeye next to there. We're good.
Yeah. Well, where do you go from here, man? What's next?
I just want to continue to go down this road. So what I'm doing now is what I've always wanted to do in life, right? So literally, this is what I get to tell people. So I get paid with social media. It's nothing. If I was working a full-time job, I'd be making better money, let's just say. But all that got kind of pushed aside when I got to stay with my kids. And so I don't take any of this for granted. I guess that's what I want to get across there, is because I get to Christmas morning last year, I got to wake up here with my kids and go open presents. Christmas Eve, I didn't have to stay until midnight at the meat shop getting your prime ribs ready. My fingers are cut up from tying all the roasts, and my feet they've been waterlogged since Thanksgiving, because you're going in and out of the freezer, cutting up turkeys, defrosting them. And so all the stuff that I've done behind the scenes or doing this, I get to wake up in the morning with my children. I get to walk my daughter to school. I get to get my son up. They get to come hug me. We get to do this. And I just shut everything else out in the world. And I just accept every single one of those moments. And now everything else that comes is some sort of a blessing. And so nothing to me right now is like, you can't really get me angry, because everything is just in its own, in place. You know what I mean? And so for me, in my life and beyond this, I guess I just want to continue to help, and figure out a way to, like, I want to get like veterans off the streets, man. Like, there's something I can do with the platform that I have. That's the kind of stuff, man. It's like, if I can jump in on some stuff that I've never been able to help with, like, dude, count me in, And so there's a lot of stuff that I can get out of this, right? But there's also a lot that I can give, dude. And this isn't me just like it's one of those things, man. It's like I never had a voice. I've always been the middle class, right? The regular guy, and now I have some kind of a voice. So I want to speak up for every single other middle class person saying that like whatever it is on each side of it, like, hey, this is how we really feel,
Yeah.
because I've lived it. We still live it, man. I'm in California. How much it costs to live out here, dude? So it's I just want everyone I want it all to level out, man. I don't want people to have to pay extra money to buy organic. Why isn't everyone buying the same food?
Yeah.
Because you're rich, you get to buy organic? No, dude. Why? Where? Well, how did we get here? And so,
Well, yeah, I mean, I get really bent out of shape when I was traveling around Texas not long ago, and they've got there's agriculture in Texas, but I went into some small towns and like I had heard about food deserts, but I was raised in Los Angeles and I was born in New York. And for the most part, when I travel, if I'm in a small town, it's for a movie and the movie's taking care of my food. They're, you know what
yeah.
I mean? Like I don't have to scrounge for I don't have to, I figure it out to some degree. I have to figure it out for myself, but also I'm usually not, I don't find myself waking up often in a small town in Texas and going like, how am I going to figure out food today? Um, I usually bring my food when I travel like that. But
Mm-hmm.
I went to these towns and I really understood what a food desert was. I didn't really get that before. You know, I thought about a food desert being a neighborhood in Los Angeles where like there's no grocery store within walking distance. And I go like, okay, yeah, that's a pain in the ass. But I know 2 miles away there's a grocery store because that's
Mm-hmm.
Los Angeles. I'm saying a small town where the only produce in that town was in an ice cream shop. And I'm not even kidding.
I
Like,
know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and that's it. And other than that, it's fast food. And even in the ice cream shop, they're serving beer, not beer, but burgers and chicken fingers and milkshakes. And then they've got another little section that's got like a very small produce, a very small meat section, and then the rest is dairy. And like I really understood, like if you lived here, where are you getting food? These are your options. Your options are fast food and this is not a grocery store. This is a very limited selection of produce and meat, you know?
And it's
And
true.
that's difficult, you know? That made me think about it a different way. I don't know how I figure it out in that circumstance.
Like, how do you stay quote unquote healthy, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so I was in kind of the same, I wouldn't even say that I was in a situation where we were the closest place, was the country store, and there's nothing for 3 mile or 3 hours each way, right? And so it's one of these same things. But you go there and they have onions and maybe some tomatoes, maybe some bananas and some garlic that's shelf stable. And then the rest of the place is, yeah, they got their dairy. So there's a couple of things of eggs and some milk, really highly priced because that's how they got to be able to sell it. And they
Yeah.
can't just have a perishable item go bad on them. So, they got cheese at $9 for a package, but what do you do? And so all these things. And so what I'm doing in there is like, I brought a couple things and thinking that there was going to be a store, and then I just fill in when I got there.
Right.
So now I'm there, I have some meat, and then I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to go to this thing. And so now I'm like, dude, like there's rice-a-roni. Like these are my choices, rice-a-roni, pasta-roni. Like I'm like looking for just the plain pasta noodles, it wasn't there. And it was like, oh man, like they had all the canned stuff. They had all this and I'm going along and the frozen stuff. And so again, yeah, I'm looking at this whole thing and understanding that like, man, it's not as easy to eat healthy in America and this is America, man. This is in the middle
Yeah.
of California.
Right.
This is in California too. And so it's like, yeah, what are we doing? What are we
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah. Well, we're showing that it's possible and that it takes a lot of work and that there are situations that even you and I will struggle with and go like, I might throw up my hands and go like, fuck, I don't have a solution for that, but I'm sure there is one.
Yeah. I think like collectively, just as human beings, we all have to end up figuring out a way to get on that same level and then come back and have some more empathy and some more sympathy. Because again, like, dude, we are all humans, man. It doesn't matter if it's your grandmother, your mother, your sister, your aunt, whatever it is, along with your friends, everybody's equal, right?
Yeah.
And so there's no extra respect because you are a grandmother or because you are a senator or because you are this. Obviously you get respect in your role, but as a human being, everybody should be equal, right? And so that's what I mean in terms of food. Food. Everyone should be getting the same quality of food. There shouldn't be some sort of person getting shitty food because of their financial situation. And that's what we've always heard is like, oh, organic is expensive, right? And so what are we doing here? Why are we making it like this? And why aren't we healing people or making it? And again, I don't know, is everything organic better? It sure seems to be so with everyone talking about it and like they want to eat organic. Why? So people don't put the other shit in our food. So it's like, what? Why are we putting shit in our food?
Yeah, listen, I would even take a step down and go like, even just like access to a bigger selection of veggies, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or a bigger selection of meat it doesn't even have to, for me, like my wife eats organic. I don't go out of my way to eat organic, but I don't want more than one ingredient in my stuff. You know what I mean?
What if I were to ask you, why don't you eat organic?
It just is never, I don't notice a difference, to be honest with you. If I eat a banana that's organic versus a banana that's not organic,
is it this?
I don't know. No,
this?
I just don't care. It doesn't, like my goals have always just been, I just want to lose weight. And there have been no other health factors, because I had doctors who told me when I was younger, if you just eat fruits and vegetables and meat, you'll lose weight. And that wasn't true. It was more work than that for me. Mm-hmm. So by the time I figured out the structure of how to eat, it just organic wasn't part of it. My wife will only buy organic stuff. But like there's a lot of places where you can't even get bananas. You can't even get a bag of lettuce or a head of lettuce. I mean, fucking bag. We've got bags of lettuce now. You know what I mean? Or
exactly.
Boxes of lettuce.
And I guess the only reason I ask, it brings it back to that same point of like, so for me, for instance, if you were to ask me, why do I not strictly eat organic?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of a confusing thing now in my life that before, again, it's like, whatever, man. Like, it's just me. I can eat, lettuce is lettuce, this is this, right? And then you grow and you learn, and I'm like, oh, my kids. Okay. So then you're like, wait, I don't mind not eating organic, but I want to feed my kids. So it's again, you're putting these kids above you.
Right.
And why do I want to do this? Is because I'm like, it costs more, it's harder to find, and this doesn't really do anything. So my skepticism is like, no. And I'm like, why am I going to pay extra? And it's all these things. But if we had a scale or an opportunity to say like, here, you can either have organic for $3 or conventional for $3. Which one are you going to choose?
I take organic.
Just like me or anyone else in the whole fucking world. Right. And so to me, why are we even or are we faced with this question? Yeah. Right. And so why are we even doing this to the human race? And so I get really like, that's where I get like, why? And I don't even have a spot to start, but it just gives me a place to like something to think about and like maybe try to figure out a way to, what are we doing? Like, if we don't change this, we're going to be the people that fucked up this whole entire next generation, right?
Yeah.
So we're letting our food destroy our communities, right? And so if we don't put a stop to it somehow and get people reversed and like get people like the corporations are literally going to take over, right? And they're going to be monopolies, and there's going to be grocery stores that take over the meat business, and right. And so now you're paying $20 a pound for this, and you have no other choice.
Yeah.
But if we can somehow get the power back into everybody's hands, all the farmers, everybody, and just kind of like get everyone their part back, and then push the grocery stores away.
Listen, when my kids were little, we went to the farmer's market every Sunday, and that's where we did the majority of our shopping. And then the kids grow up and they stop eating, and they're no longer just eating the food that I make. And it's suddenly like, well, I'm not going to try so hard. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
life happens. And then we move to a place that I don't know of a farmer market. You know what I mean? So like, there's my ideal. And then there's also the reality. If I go into a store and the organic tomatoes are firmer and I don't want every tomato to be exactly the same. I like some imperfections. I'm not talking about that, but I don't want a mushy tomato.
And then organic tomatoes taste better.
Yeah,
they really do.
I'll buy the organic tomatoes. I'll buy the organic cucumbers. Like you know what I mean? It's for me, it's like what appears better? What's a fresher quality? If
so I used
organic
to mentally
stuff looks like shit, I'm not buying it.
I'm right there, dude. Yep. I used to mentally like fight myself to talk to these customers, right? So there's the chicken counter, and you walk up to the chicken counter, and there's boneless, skinless breast, conventional, boneless, skinless breast, organic. And then they'd be like, oh, can I get 2 organic boneless, skinless breasts? Yes. No problem. I wrap it up. And they go, okay, give me 2 thighs. I'm like, oh, the organic? They're like, oh, no, these over here, the conventional. I'm like, oh, okay. And then they give me a pound of this. I'm like, the organic? No, just the kid. And so I'm like, in my head, like, why are you doing this and this? Like, because it didn't like just confuses me all the time, because I'm like, you just paid more money for organic, but you're kind of going to eat a little of it, and then you're kind of going to eat a little of this. So does it minus itself out? And like my head goes crazy, and I'm just like, do you want all organic? And and they're just, I don't know, or do you want all conventional? And then sometimes people don't realize it, but sometimes they're just like, no, I want what I want.
I want what I want.
My dog eats organic. Okay.
The dogs are blessed. Anthony, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much.
As always, man. I love it.
I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.